Okay, we are moving on to discussion topics. Item number 1 is the appointment of co-chairs. I have spoken to Laura about this. The reason this item is on the agenda is that this committee was essentially reconfigured by both boards to include 3 members of each board. But we did not address the issue of chairmanship. And anyone who would like this job, please speak now.
That was
You
what I was
gotta be
going to ask.
kidding, Susan. I mean, seriously.
What was the pay for this position? I don't
Keep
remember.
on doing the great job you're doing.
All right. So we do need a motion to to appoint as co-chairs of the estuary. I'm sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied, of the Special Estuary Transit District Expansion Transition Committee. Laura Francis, Laura Francis and Susan Tyler. May I have a motion to that effect? Beverly?
So moved.
Okay, Joan, I'll take you as a second. Further discussion? There being none, and I'm absolutely shocked no one else wants this job. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstain. All right, the motion is carried. You have your 2 old co-chairs continuing.
Thank
Joe,
you.
do you,
Thank you, Susan.
Joe, is there anything you have to report that can be said in public?
Yes, so they are meeting with that final person either today or tomorrow, and I promise I will get a call the minute they get out of that meeting. They said it's all vacations. They just haven't gotten to schedule it.
Well, if we'd have been on the Tonight Show, we would have had Ed McMahon open the envelope and the Karnak would say, we have one more person that needs to review this letter.
Okay, I will draft the letter we referred to, and we will assume no action as we go forward from DOT. Alrighty, number 2, the authority, committee workload and the authority to approve contracts and procurements. We spoke briefly about this last week, and this relates to the fact that the purchasing policy permit the board chair or executive director to approve contracts and procurements under the level of $50,000 without full board approval. And we talked about the potential need to increase that based on some of these special studies and additional capital projects, and not wanting to have to go back to each full board for approval for this. We did bring this up last week or 2 weeks ago at our estuary board meeting. And the feedback from them was from a few of our board members who felt they were concerned that the responsibility and liability on the part of whomever does approve contracts in excess of $50,000 might be unwise. Leslie, if you have a different take on that, let me know.
No, I think they were concerned about personal liability. We talked about, well, we have contracts that are $200,000 and $250,000, and why can't the, one person, the chair, just sign on that? And it was actually Charlie, I think, who brought up the excellent point that that's a lot of liability if something goes wrong for one person. But the $50,000 threshold, I don't think anybody had a problem with that. Am I correct?
Well, the 50,000 threshold is what's not going to work for us.
It may work on small things, but not on these studies.
Correct. So we did have, I think, 3 estuary board members who expressed concern about the level of personal liability. As I recall, Laura had a concern about that as well. when this came up at this committee. Joe, if you could put up these special studies, or Chris, whomever's doing this, that were in the packet. There's a variety of special studies and additional capital projects. You can see from this list that most of these are under 150. And while they might have a price tag or funded value of 200,000, it would not be one contract for 200. There would very likely be, one or two contracts, or maybe more, covered in that. And so what Joe and I talked about is perhaps raising the level to 150,000. This could obviate the need to go back to both full boards. It would, on the surface, provide greater flexibility for us to be nimble and act on these things. In the interim, however, the estuary board also voted to begin meeting monthly, starting in September, in recognition of the fact that this particular project has a lot of moving parts, and in an effort to keep people in the loop and to be transparent about what's being decided and discussed, that moving to a monthly meeting format, which Middletown already has, would be effective. So I guess I'd like to open it up to further discussion, but once again, Laura's absence and Ed's absence, I think is critical here, because Laura would be one of the people who would be taking on this responsibility. Joe and I had talked about enabling this committee, either the co-chairs and or the executive director of estuary, which would be Joe, to sign anything at $150,000 or less that was, number one, related to the merger, and number two, fully funded. So let's see if anyone has any other comments on this particular matter, to try to keep this committee and the boards responsive to the needs to make changes as we go forward. So I'll just open it up to any comments or questions people might have. And that's a potential motion.
Well, I would make that motion. I'm not sure that that'll fly through the ETD based on last week's meeting, but I'd no reason not to recommend it. So I would make that motion as presented.
Yes, it would have to be approved by
Yeah.
both boards.
Yeah.
Do we want Joan as a ETD board member? Do you have any comments to add here? Joan?
I don't have any more comments. I agree with Angus.
Okay. Beverly?
I'm still reading the motion.
Yeah. Frankly, I'm a little uncomfortable moving ahead with this without Laura, since she would be one of the people who would be tasked with taking on additional liability, and she did express some reservations about that when this came up last week. Joe, would tabling this create any problems? We're not in a
As long
schedule.
as we have something before the board meeting. Because the one that has to do it is the estuary board. Middletown only has one project related to this that they had the funding for, which is the radios,
Okay.
which would exceed this anyway. So we're going to have to go to the Middletown board anyway on the radios. All of the funding for everything else related to the merger was given to estuary, so it all fall under the estuary procurement policies
Okay,
and not Middletown.
but Laura as
But
co-chairperson.
right, but Laura would
But
have. So
this
as long as we
group-
have it for the estuary board meeting,
Okay, well, that's the
then-
middle of September.
which is the middle of September, so we've got a couple weeks before we really need to do that.
Given that, I would like to suggest that we table this issue and bring it back up when we have adequate representation here. So I think we're done with that option, but Angus, thank you for offering to make the motion, which I think we will table. Okay, next item is old business, board policies, our old friend. We did send out a completed version, and the only thing that's different in this is Dave Lee's rather yeoman's efforts to take an 8-page investment policy and reduce it to 3, which I was very excited to see. Dave, do you have any comments on that?
No, one thing about the board policies is that there'll be ample opportunity for the expanded ETD board, once it comes into being, to review these policies, because this will be a first order of business when the new board is created to vote on. Everything else that's in that group you've already seen. We've already taken comments. The long thing on indemnification was legalese blessed by the attorney. The investment policy is, the existing one was not only impossible to understand, very long, had phrases in it that neither Susan nor I understood, but had some requirements that weren't being followed. So it's time for a change anyway. Something fairly simple and straightforward that simply says the board gives its highest priority to protecting our assets. Preservation of principal is more important than return on investment. At the same time, we want to be sure that we invest in safe things that are relatively safe, highly rated bonds. So it's pretty straightforward stuff, and there's it sounds like you're going to have plenty of time to review this stuff before the new board takes office.
Yeah. Okay, well, Dave, thank you very much for doing that. It takes a lot more time to write something short than it does to write something long. And I know you went through several iterations, but what I'd like to recommend with regard to the board policies is to ask for legal to do a last minute review of those, Joe. And you can probably use Jonathan for that, just to double check it. I doubt there's anything in there that's going to be of that much interest to them. The investment policy that Dave was able to truncate for us also refers to allowable investments from the Connecticut General Statute. So I think we're pretty much covered there. But let's go ahead and ask Jonathan to take a look at those. Okay, item number 2 is for your information, included in the packet were the board resolutions that we discussed that were signed respectively by Middletown and Estuary. And again, that was in preparation for the Middletown members going to their boards and asking, their boards of selectmen and the town council asking for a vote to join Estuary. Also for your information is the final brochure, Joe?
Final, yes.
Ta-da. Ready for prime time?
That's the print. That is the print version. So we are obtaining quotes. Waiting on
Okay.
like one more quote, right, Chris? And it'll be off to print.
I'm waiting for one more from Essex Printing, but I did get 2 others.
All right. So we'll be hopefully send it to print today.
Okay. I think, again, we should not put anything out to print until we get something that's agreed to with DOT.
I'm sorry, do you mean, when you say out to print, you mean don't get it printed or don't disseminate it?
Do not print anything, do not spend any money until we hear something from DOT.
Well, actually, that's a question I have. When it does come down to printing it, since DOT asked for this, are they going to be paying for the printing? How does this work?
No, they pay for everything. I mean,
Yeah, well, do we,
they pay most of our costs already. So yeah, we'll put it towards them as usual.
and Joe, do you have a sense, once you choose a printer, how long it will take to get this printed?
Did any of them indicate, Chris? I mean, it's a pretty easy print, probably a few
No.
days.
I mean, it should
Probably
be
what?
Yeah, this is short. I
It's
can't
less
imagine
than
being more in a week.
exactly.
When we did all the Park Connect stuff, which was, similar one page, most of them were within a week. It wasn't long.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're agreed then that we're not going to send anything out for printing until we get something back from DOT. Is there any disagreement with that?
Man,
Okay. Item number 4 is the PowerPoint presentation, which I think turned out really well. Want to thank Dave, Joe, and Leslie for working on this. When it's ready to go, it's going to be a blockbuster. But right now,
Yeah.
we are not disseminating it or enabling anyone to use it until and unless we get something resolved, not just a response from DOT, but a mutually agreeable response.
Mhm.
Okay. Any comments on the PowerPoint or any suggestions or the PowerPoint is changeable. So if you come up with some things that you would like to see changed, you can let Joe
There's only
know.
one thing we can't change, and that's that green thing on it. Leslie and I tried and tried. Not get rid of it.
Okay.
I've Googled it. I don't know how to get rid of that thing.
All right. Okay. So that concludes old business. New business. We did talk about this summer schedule being different to accommodate various people's other requirements. We're going back into the fall. Is there any sentiment to changing the schedule? And bear in mind too that next week is Monday is a holiday, Labor Day, so we would probably not be meeting then. Do we want to go back to a end of the week meeting on the idea that, at least with regard to all of you First Select people, you tend to need Mondays and Tuesdays to solve problems from the weekend, and try to keep the end of the week open for unforeseen kinds of things. Is there any sentiment on that? Or do we want to come up with a new date for a new time and date for next week and then bring this up next week, hopefully when more people are here?
I just have one thought about going to the end of the week. My understanding is Middletown meets on Thursday once a month, and now Estuary is going to be meeting on Friday once a month. So you're going to run into some conflicts
Oh, yeah.
by going to either a Thursday or a Friday.
And we meet on Thursday at 3, so, yeah.
Oh, so we could
was-
do Thursday at 9. And we've been keeping it to an hour.
Okay.
Okay, but you're right. Friday is a definite problem for us. How about we do this? How about we set up a time and a date for next week only, and then bring up at that meeting a more permanent rescheduling. Next week is Labor Day, so we have the 6th is out. How about Tuesday, the 7th?
I'm looking.
I'm looking too. I think Laura is back. Laura is back on the 7th, so that's probably not a great day for her. After
Right.
being gone for quite a while. What about,
Do you need to have a meeting if we still haven't gotten a letter from, I mean, are we just gonna be having the same
Yes.
crap?
yes, because I'm going to write a letter to the commissioner about how we're not going to be doing anymore.
Which is
With-
gonna go back to Dennis and whatever. I'm just a guest here.
Well, I think we should schedule a meeting. There's always the off chance there might be something from DOT to report. What about Thursday at 9 o'clock on September 9th?
Works.
Does that work for you, Angus?
Yeah.
Okay,
At what time you said?
9 o'clock on Thursday, the 9th, Beverly?
Is that too early for, is that too early for Joan?
Not for nothing, I mean, because I'm not on your committee, but I will not be able to attend that particular date. So I have another
date?
meeting
The day at all?
that morning. I won't be available until that afternoon, Thursday night. But I mean, you don't need me. You got, I'm not even on your committee.
That is the day of the MAT board meeting.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
not till 3. I just don't know how Ed and Laura will feel about meeting
All right.
twice for MAT in the same
Yeah.
day.
How about Friday, the 10th at 9?
Can we do 10?
Yep.
Friday the 10th?
How about
Okay.
Friday, the 10th at 10? How does that sound?
It's okay.
Okay, Joan?
Okay. I said, okay.
Yep, thank you. All right, we will plan on that. Obviously, if we get more information in from DOT, we will adjust accordingly. Okay, so that is just for next week. And we will, Chris, continue to put on the agenda a meeting schedule for the weeks thereafter. Okay. Discussion of next steps. We will have a legal review of the board policies. I think what we'll do is take a closer look at the committee workload bullet sheet that we gave out last week and try to create a framework for discussion on that. And we will obviously be addressing any comments from DOT on the status of the letter and the allocation of the 2.5 million. So I think that is it for is September 10th at 10 with will be basically Zoom. And is there any other, are there any other comments, observations, frustrations, suggestions?
Not for me.
Are we having fun yet? Okay.
Okay.
May I have a motion to adjourn at 2:01 PM?
So moved.
Okay, Beverly, second Angus, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Joe, I know you'll be on the phone immediately.